What's up, Offended America? I'm your host, Hunter Avallone, and welcome to the official Offended America podcast. Now, today we have a very exciting guest coming on. It's actually a college liberal who attends the infamous the famous Hood College. That's right. For those who don't remember, it was the campus that I got banned from because some special snowflake got super triggered that I was there, complained, whined, took her turn at the microphone to make fun of me, which I then filmed and put on the internet, and a lot of people didn't like that, so they banned me. Like, I actually have a official, legal, written notice that says I am not permitted to walk on the property. Crazy, right? So anyway, there's a certain student there. His name is Zach. He attends Hood College, and he tends to disagree with a lot of things I say. He's always leaving stupid little snarky comments on my Instagram post. So I thought, hey, let's invite him on the show and actually debate. Let's talk. You know, if you want to say it in my comment section, get ready to say it to my face. So today, we are going to be debating a college liberal. Let's get started now. All right, Zach. Well, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Hunter.
No problem. So you currently are attending fascist college.
The Hood College, yes.
Hood College, yes. You are aware that I was permanently banned from there, right?
I actually did not know that. However, I knew you had a lot of issues with the administration over. Was it specifically over the Conservative Culture Board and your, I guess, commentary on that?
It was over my video. I don't think they appreciated that I exposed them, and I also don't think they appreciated the fact that I put that video of that raging snowflake up on the internet.
Yeah, I can see that. I can understand that.
So how do you feel about that, though? Do you think it was fair for them to ban me?
So overall, as regarding that whole Conservative Culture Board situation, I think the school handled it. I mean, it really offended me, to be perfectly honest, with that's freedom of speech, and they kind of debated for a little too long, in my opinion, whether or not they should, censor those people just based on, what they posted and what they believed. And furthermore, to empower some people's opinions and shut down yours. I did not find that.
Okay. So it sounds like we might actually agree a little bit on that.
Yeah. I'm pretty pro, being able to say whatever you want, even if, it offends some people. So.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. So I assume that, I have some notes here. So I assume you voted against Donald Trump, right?
I did not vote for Donald Trump. You'd be correct.
Who did you vote for, just out of curiosity?
I voted for Hillary Clinton. I don't know if I regret that or not, but,
I would regret it. She lost.
Yeah, well, that is true. But, for better or for worse, I did not really want her to be the president anyway, so.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, I'm fine talking about Trump a little bit since we both kind of have opinions on him. I'll tell you straight up the things that I don't agree with him so far.
Okay.
So I don't agree with the Syria strike. I think that was really premature.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't let any time go. No, he just went for it. And I think that was a little too premature.
Yeah.
However, I know you want to talk about Trump's taxes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would be able to debate you on that. I haven't paid much attention to that. I'm guilty. Guilty as charged. But the thing I did agree with on Trump, and I want to know what your thoughts on it, was they call it a Muslim ban. I don't think it was a Muslim ban.
Okay.
It was a travel ban.
Right.
Personally, I think it's one of the best things I've ever seen happen to this country.
Okay.
So I wanted to know your opinions and thoughts on that.
Okay, so the travel ban specifically. I frankly find it pretty dangerous. So there's a lot of Muslims in the world, and I guess the travel ban specifically was focusing on those that are considered quote unquote radicalized. People who might be associated with Al Qaeda or ISIS or Al Shabaab or some group like that. And I mean, I think a ban on travel for those countries where we have specific conflicts in, the U.S. military has vested interest in there. I think that's pretty dangerous. We're limiting our ability to have effective counterintelligence in those countries, effectively send our people over there to do work.
Well, I mean, it's only a temporary ban.
Right. But again,
maybe you're temporarily limiting those things, but you're not limiting them forever.
Right. But I don't understand why we should really be limiting them at all. How does a short-term ban, what exactly are we trying to accomplish?
So the plan is you put a temporary stop on people immigrating from those countries. Mm-hmm. While they're stopped, that gives us time to really change up our vetting process and improve it. And then once it's improved, once it's changed, we open it back up and we let people keep coming in. However, we just need to put them through extreme vetting.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, and I guess that
So,
makes sense to me.
you see, I mean, you say it sounds dangerous. I think it's dangerous to just let people walk in our country.
Right. And no, and I agree with that. However, I just don't see how what kind of reformation that needs to happen would require shutting down travel to those countries. And in that short period of time, I mean, ISIS is a very, groups like this are very kind of they're able to switch up their wavelength very quickly. They're very versatile. And so,
Well, you are aware that ISIS is coming in with refugees, right?
oh, for sure. Of course they are. I mean, why would they
Okay,
not?
well, if you're aware of that, then why on earth would you be against putting a temporary ban on immigration to improve our vetting system?
I mean, that short period of time having like however short, whatever the duration of time that we're talking about shutting down
Mhm.
travel to these countries is dangerous. They're able to operate more effectively if we,
Well,
have closed borders, closed means of travel that, don't allow us to as effectively commit or, engage in the tactics that we're trying to engage in. Sorry.
okay. So is that why you believe it's dangerous?
I mean,
Because I'm just
I,
trying. I mean, you think that putting the ban on is dangerous. I think not putting the ban on is dangerous. So which danger kind of outweighs the other?
yeah, I mean, that's a
Because
very
I
good
can
point.
I can read you this right here. I took a couple notes actually. This actually comes from the Guardian, which is like a
Okay.
super liberal source to begin with. It's like a
Yeah,
liberal crap hole.
they're pretty
It
liberal.
says NATO commander has said that ISIS is spreading like cancer among refugees.
Mhm.
According to New York Times, what Germany said was that terrorism suspects are posing as refugees. So we're already seeing in these other countries or these places that ISIS is among the refugees. So I think
Mhm.
the safest option for Americans would be put the travel ban on for a temporary time, improve our vetting system so ISIS can't come in, open it back up, and let people keep coming in. What's the problem with that?
Personally, I think if we are going to, put some type of memorandum on travel, we need to just do it on all countries.
I
If,
agree.
if the
I,
focus,
I would love to listen. I would love to see more Islamic countries on the list.
oh, okay, I'm sure Islamic, but you got to understand a lot of these people are coming from Europe. They're coming from Indonesia. They're coming from Asia. Frankly, most terrorism that happens in Western countries is not from people that are migrating, and I know that's a pretty poor excuse. However, I just don't see the benefit of a memorandum on travel. These people are homegrown terrorists. Look at the people that commit the San Bernardino shooting. They were
No, no,
they were
no. I was
citizens.
I was about to bring up the San Bernardino shooting because let me see if I can find it. Uh, the San Bernardino shooting. Oh, come on. Yeah, the San Bernardino shooter was not even properly vetted. That's a perfect example of why we need the travel ban.
So, and when you say properly vetted, what is your definition of that?
Like I believe it was the woman who was entering the country that helped carry out the shooting, didn't even have like a finished visa, or she hadn't
Okay.
been finished. Like she just hadn't been properly vetted.
Hmm.
So, if anything, that's a perfect example as to why we need the ban.
But how would a ban basically increase proper vetting? Why do we require a memorandum
Because
on
it's
travel in
because it's
order
going
to
to be
do
really hard to try and improve a system while people are still trying to go through that system.
I feel like it's much more effective to try to,
If you want to fix a computer, first you turn the
Mhm.
computer off before taking it apart and fixing it. It's the same thing with the vetting process. You stop the vetting, you fix it, you open it back up.
Well,
I
I mean,
don't I don't think there's any I really don't think there should be a disagreement here. This is so I mean, it's so basic to me.
yeah, okay. So think about when you run a social experiment. Is it more effective to completely stop the experiment, rewrite it, or is it better to basically put in, new qualifications and different ideas into the experiment and then keep running it to see how it works with people running
Well,
through it?
this isn't a social experiment. This are people's lives on the line.
Well, I think it'd still be much more effective to input those changes that you want to change and
Okay,
see.
so maybe I'm sorry to cut you off, but maybe we disagree on certain like how the travel ban's being done. But do we both agree at least that it's necessary?
I don't see that it's necessary. So what do you think is the issue that we're trying to tackle when implementing a travel ban like this?
We're trying to tackle the issue of ISIS and Islamic extremists sneaking in with refugees and putting American lives in jeopardy.
Okay, and I understand that. However, I think it's important to kind of go back to the origin of what, like, how these people become terrorists. And
That's pretty obvious.
Right, right. It's an ideology, right? And to tackle an ideology,
Mhm.
you have to find the root source of why people think that way, right?
Yes, it's because their ideology teaches them to think that way.
Right. However, they are attracted to that ideology for a reason. These are not children who are born, then being raised from a toddler to think the West is evil and they have to go destroy the West, right? I mean, there's a chance that there are people like that. However, I would argue that most of these people are being attracted to these, very violent, extreme ideologies simply because there are very few other options, and they see that enemy in their country, and they think, okay, well, here's this Western country operating in my country, taking from me what I love.
See, that's an extremely common argument, like, oh, it's actually America's fault that certain Muslims are radicalized. There's been, I mean, are you referring to any like what specific time are you referring to? When did when America invaded Iraq? Is that what you're talking about?
I mean, pretty much, but
well, okay, then that's a super common argument, but there's been Islamic attacks on American soil going back to the 70s. You do know that like Islam has been a pain in this, like Islam has been a thorn in the side of America since America began.
I'd say organized religion has been a thorn in the side of America since America began.
Well, in the beginning of when America was first founded, we were forced to pay tributes to the Pirates of Barbary. The Pirates of Barbary were Islamic. When Thomas Jefferson was elected president, he decided he didn't like that anymore. So he decided we're going to stop paying tributes to the Pirates of Barbary, which was, like I said already, Islamic. Mm-hmm. That caused them to get angry, and so they attacked us, and then we like pounded them in the ground, and they were kind of silent for a few years. They came back, we did it again. They came back, we did it again. And that's kind of what started it. It's not
origin
of maybe we should still be paying tributes to the Pirates of Barbary if it's really America. It's not America's fault that Islam is violent. It's Islam's fault.
Islam is not inherently violent. Okay.
Islam's ideology is founded on violence. Go read about the Prophet Muhammad. Go read about what he did to gay people.
Warlord. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not denying that at all. So when a lot of people, I hate to bring another religion into this to compare, but when a lot of people hold Jesus Christ up as this excellent man, he was a good man. However, he did bad things, and he
never killed anybody.
Yeah, well, he uprooted businesses and threw down people's establishments simply because he believed that it was greedy.
If you seriously think that compares in any way to the Prophet Muhammad being a warlord
and killing lots
murdering gay people, being a pedophile, it doesn't even compare. It doesn't even begin to compare. It's a false equivalency.
Okay. The bottom line is, there are 1.7 billion Muslims in the world, right? And
yes.
Like there are, many, many, many Christians, they can't all attribute to this.
You're misunderstanding what I'm saying. No, you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. I am not saying that all Muslims are violent. I'm not saying that all Muslims are terrorists, because I know not all Muslims are terrorists.
But
I'm saying that
Islam is
the ideology of Islam is the issue. Okay, listen, Islam, like I already said, Islam is founded on violence, and the Quran makes it clear that Muslims who do not kill are hypocrites doomed to hell. If you want my source for that, it comes from the Quran. It comes from a book I'm reading. A man who wrote it studied Islam for 12 years.
Look, I completely believe that. I'm not denying that at all. However, I'm saying it's one of those things that you take with a grain of salt. I mean, you were a Christian at one point.
It's not being taken as a grain of salt. Muslims are using it as justification to kill people.
Not all Muslims. Some people.
I'm not saying all. No, see, again, you're twisting the point. I'm not saying all Muslims. I never once said all Muslims.
No. I'm not saying that you did, but I am saying that it is kind of ridiculous to say that these people, who take this word and spin it and say, okay, well, the Quran says this. So simply because of, my negative attitude and the politics that are going on in my life, I'm going to empower myself using this text to go kill lots of people and then say, okay, well, then the religion is the problem.
The religion is the problem, though. Do you want to hear some stats?
Sure. I mean, I just don't see how a text
like, do you really
think, a novel that people are.
Do you really think that it's all coincidence that so many Muslims are violent? Do you really think it's a coincidence?
No, not at all. I don't think it's a coincidence.
Okay, so let's see. Quran 8:12, I will cast terror into the hearts of those who disbelieve, therefore strike off their heads and strike off every fingertip of them. In 2015, there was a Muslim beheader. He actually invoked that verse to justify his killing of another man.
Yeah, yeah. I feel, of course, you would. I mean,
tell me if Islam is not inherently violent, then how come people who convert to Islam become violent?
I'm sure some do, but a lot of
Okay,
people.
yes, I'm not saying all of them, but let me ask you this then. Which one's more relevant? No, listen. Which one's more relevant? Which do you think is more important to talk about? The peaceful Muslims who are irrelevant, doing nothing and harming no one, or the violent ones that are harming people?
But why does the fact that they're Muslim does not really matter that much, frankly?
Yeah, it matters. It matters everything. It
Why?
means everything. Because it further proves my point that Islam is a violent ideology.
It proves
why are you so? I mean, what are you
violent? And they're using Islam to justify that violence. They, in my opinion, those people that join ISIS, people that join Al Qaeda, they are no different than the conservatives. I mean, you guys.
No, no. Hold on. Hold on. You realize that makes no difference, right? Okay, so a Muslim is violent using the Quran as justification to be violent. How is that any better?
It's not
still violent.
It's ridiculous, and in fact, that drives basically the same negative narrative about Muslims. I mean, it's helping to push that negative narrative about Muslims, saying, okay, well, this guy blew up a building and he is Muslim and he did it in the name of Islam, in the name of the Prophet Muhammad.
Yes.
Therefore,
because Islam commands its followers to kill the infidels.
Christianity tells you that you need to kill your wife.
Christianity is not being used as justification to murder anybody, but Islam is.
That's not
the Christianity argument. No, the Christianity argument is completely irrelevant. It's not even an argument. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying
very minimal is a very minimal basis to try to build on why these people are bad. If they're not bad because of Islam.
Okay. Continue.
So
wait. I'm sorry. I think I missed that. What was your last point? What'd you say there before?
They're not evil necessarily because of. I mean, I don't really believe in good or evil, but they're not really. The religion
they're not evil
Islam
because of Islam.
Is a very kind of minimal. It's a more vocal point. Okay, it's an empowerment. It's a tool. They use Islam as a justification. So
okay, how does that make anything better? To me that's just as bad. If they're using Islam as justification to be violent, then it's just as bad.
We should be.
Why is it if Islam is not a violent ideology? Why is it able to be used as justification to be violent?
Because people can take anything and spin it like that. People.
Well, why do we not see it happening at the rate with other religions? Christians are not killing people every other day. Christians are not throwing gay people off rooftops. Christians are not beating and murdering rape victims.
The conservative America was, holding these religious values to, hold back gays for hundreds of years in this country. It's the same thing.
I think that's bad. I think that's bad. But holding back gay people is not nearly able. You can compare that to throwing them off rooftops and stoning them to death, which, by the way, is also justified by the Quran. I can read you that verse if you'd like.
Wait, it's practice the Bible too. I totally believe you.
Quran 7:80 through 84. For you practice your lusts on men in preference to women. You are indeed a people transgressing beyond bounds, and we rain down on them a shower of brimstone.
Yeah.
Literally, I kid you not, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, ISIS threw gay people off buildings and then stoned them to death. Their violence is being justified by the Quran.
Yeah. And it's a good point. I mean, yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah. So I think that it's and plus, if you want to talk more, if you want to move on from Islam, we can. But just so you know, for an ideology you're claiming isn't violent, in 2016, there were 2,478 Islamic attacks in 59 different countries where over 21,000 people were killed. In 2017, so far, I'm sure these stats have been updated since I've gotten these, there's been 1,112 Islamic attacks in 49 different countries where over 8,000 people were killed. We're not seeing those rates, those death rates in any other religion.
Mm-hmm.
So we can move on from Islam if you'd like to.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah.
I'm just help me understand then. I do want to move on, but really quick, help me understand. Why do you feel the need to defend Islam?
Because, okay, so it ties back into the issue of both sides are using this religion to empower themselves to do negativity. And I do believe that, persecution, not persecution, obviously, but discriminating against these people based on their religion and based on the idea that, okay, well, because this person subscribes to a religion that is a threat, we should be afraid of them. And that helps to, portray a negative picture.
Well, do you ever think maybe there's a negative picture on Muslims because they all behave so negatively? I'm sorry. Let me retract that. No, I stuttered. I made a mistake. They do not all act negatively.
But do you that, like, if you look at this person, it's a fact that people feel a more a general sense of fear around these people, because
I think that's extremely justified. Anyone that subscribes to a religion that wants me and you dead, I think is worth being afraid of. That's why I don't think Islamophobia is even a legitimate term.
That's a ridiculous claim to make. It's very hard to argue that, against the point of, okay, Islam is a violent religion, but then why do all these people subscribe to it? Why is it the fastest growing religion? Why are all these?
I don't know. I wish it wasn't. I wish it would stop.
It's just too hard of a claim to stand beside, to say, this is a violent religion and all these people are converting to Islam. All these people are Muslim because they are inherently violent. Or,
no, you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. I'm not saying people subscribe to Islam because they start off as inherently violent.
Right,
but Islam is inherently violent. You never did answer my question earlier. Why do people who subscribe to Islam suddenly become violent? There was just a guy.
But they don't suddenly become violent.
No, listen. There was just a guy. It was a couple months ago. He was like an alt-right, white supremacist, whatever. He converted to Islam. He came in. He got mad at his friends, and he killed them. In 2015, a guy in Oklahoma. He was a regular dude. He converted to Islam. He walked in and literally beheaded a woman in her office.
Radicalism. Islam was his excuse to be radical and crazy.
No, because we just don't see it. Like I already showed you, the death rates. We don't see the death rates coming from anywhere else but but people who are subscribed to Islam.
The places part would be accurate too. They're literally a war. But okay.
I don't know. I think that Islam is inherently violent. I think I did a good job at proving that.
Yeah, and you did put up a good argument. It's still ridiculous to me. These are individual people that are subscribing to a faith, a system of faith.
You keep going back to that argument. That's not making any sense, though. You keep going back to there's a bunch of people. No one's saying that all the people are bad.
Yeah, but you're saying all the people are bad. You're saying
no, I'm not. I never once said that.
Are then converted.
I said that Islam, the ideology, is bad.
So if you convert to Islam, are you then bad?
No, not necessarily.
Were you bad before, and that's why you converted to Islam?
I think if people convert to Islam and they don't kill people, they're not real Muslims, based on the Quran and based on studies conducted. Based on authors.
So do you think that there's a significant quantity of people that are quote unquote fake Muslims?
Absolutely. So I believe there are two kinds of Muslims. We have ISIS, which I believe are the real Muslims. They're acting on the Quran. They're following the Quran as it.
They are real Muslims.
The ISIS are the real Muslims. And then we have these, peaceful Muslims who quite honestly are ignorant to their own religion. And I would venture to say they've probably never even cracked open their own Quran.
Huh. Okay.
So that's what I would say. So I'm not denying the fact that there's several people out there who believe they're Muslim and who are not acting violently. Right. But if they're not acting violently, they're not actual real Muslims. Why does anyone subscribe to a religion? It's for one of I used to be religious myself. One of the biggest reasons that people subscribe to religion is for the promise of eternal life. Why on earth would you subscribe to a religion that based on that religion, you're not even going to go to heaven unless you kill people? So these peaceful Muslims, based on their own religion, aren't going to heaven.
So are you basing the legitimacy of their religious application based on the book, based on the Quran?
Absolutely. The Quran is the Islamic texts.
Okay. So
that matters a ton.
Do you believe in real Christians or fake Christians?
I believe the Bible, gives different options on how to become a Christian. The Bible says, I believe it's in Romans, you must believe in your heart that, Jesus is Lord. And no, you must profess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead. Then you will have eternal life. That is the promise of salvation in the Bible. In the Quran, it's kill the infidels. How is that not an ideology founded on violence?
Well, that's a very, cherry picking kind of, way to put it. I haven't read the Quran, so it's kind of hard for me to speak.
How is it a cherry picking way of putting it? It's in the Quran.
Yeah, but okay, so but in the Bible, there's so many qualifications in order to be a Christian. I tell people this all the time, and I say, I was raised Christian. I have a mother who's a religious scholar. I myself have gone to a priesthood and lived there for periods of time.
Mm-hmm.
I've never met somebody who I'd consider a real Christian. So I guess in a loose kind of way, I'm basically in the same boat with you.
You're going off your own speculation. I'm going off what's in the Quran or what's in the Bible.
Well, I am going off what's in the Bible. You can't.
I just think that the entire Christian argument is such a common and apologetic argument, and
it's literally the same thing.
It's literally no. I'm just saying it's completely irrelevant.
And my argument is religion in general is completely irrelevant. These are radical people that were radicalized based on war, based on poverty, based on many other things. Religion is a very kind of.
Don't make excuses for the terrorists, Zach. Come on.
I'm not making.
It literally sounds like you're making excuses for terrorists. Oh, they're poor. They're in war zones. No, they're subscribed to a religion that tells them to kill infidels, and that's how they're going to have eternal life. The terrorists before 9/11, before they flew the airplanes into the Twin Towers, were out there partying it up, doing a bunch of things that are against Islam because they knew the moment they died, all their sins would be forgiven.
They're not real Muslims either. You can't say like, but you also can't argue that poverty and crisis don't matter. I'm
not saying they don't matter, but I'm just saying don't use those for excuses why Muslims become radicalized. Muslims are radicalized by their own religion.
People are radicalized by radicalization. So ISIS is a huge national security threat. You're not going to argue that. I know that.
No, I'm not going to argue that at all.
They're a huge threat to the United States. They're a huge threat to our democracy. If we are to discount, these conflicts and their state of living, where they're from, wherever they originate, why they came from what they came from is a huge priority for us. And
okay, well, I could easily say if poverty and war zones are causing Muslims to become radicalized, then how come Muslims who are already living in the United States, like the story I told you about Oklahoma, or like the alt-right dude, are suddenly radicalized the moment they become Muslim? Are they in like bad home environments or something?
I would need to see the evidence of, these people. Are we talking about migrants here or homegrown?
No, we're talking about, I believe, homegrown. I believe.
Okay.
I don't have the story with me, so I couldn't give you the exact details, but I believe they were homegrown.
Okay. Well, that sounds to me like sympathizers. That sounds to me like people who became radicalized and then said, okay, well, in order to be part of this radical, group that I want to, join up with, basically converting to Islam is one of the main things to do. I'm not at all denying that these groups are, Islam is what, they're Muslim, right? They're Muslim groups.
Yes.
But I'm not arguing that. I'm not arguing that they use Islam to empower themselves to be violent, but
you just keep trying to make excuses like, oh, they're using Islam, oh, they're in bad environments or things like that. Why don't you just admit that?
Listen, the same thing that you're doing. They're using Islam to empower a negative connotation. I mean, they're doing it much more violently than you're doing. I hope.
What do you think? What do you mean? I'm using what to justify what?
To justify their violence, basically. That's what they're doing.
Why, Zach? You're not getting it, man. Why are they doing it in the name of Islam then? Why are these attacks done in the name of Islam? In the recent years, there's been the London Bridge attack where 3 Muslims stabbed people. There's been a Manchester Arena attack, gay nightclub shooting, San Bernardino attack. Mm-hmm. Those are just a couple in the recent years.
Okay, so focus on the countries that Muslims originate from. So the Middle East, right?
Yes.
Or frankly,
where Islam is widely taught.
Right. Indonesia is pretty mainly Muslim, but I forgot where I was going with this.
Indonesia, well, no, you're right. Indonesia is pretty primarily Muslim. But another reason that, and I'm going to connect that Indonesia thing in a second, another reason that what makes Islam so dangerous is the Sharia law aspect of it. So I call Islam an ideology because it's not just a religion, it's also a legal system, therefore making it an ideology.
Way of life, it's many things, yeah.
Yeah, and so Sharia law, and I don't know where you stand on this or not, Sharia law is extremely disgusting. It's extremely violent. It's oppressive to gays. It's oppressive to women. And if you look in Indonesia, the only place where Sharia law exists is where gay people are abused, women are abused, things like that are happening. Again, an Islamic issue.
Okay, so
Because see, the Quran states that, excuse me, no, it was Muhammad himself stated that Muslims are held to Sharia law. So again, Sharia law is an aspect of being Islam.
yeah, but there's many different Sharia laws.
No, there isn't. No, there isn't. Let me read you some stats.
Yes, there is. I mean, like there's Protestants, like there's Catholics, like the Church of the Brethren. There's many different kinds of Jews. There's many different kinds of Muslims, and they all attribute to different Sharia laws.
According to a Pew Research study from 2013, large amounts believe in one interpretation of Sharia law. So I'm looking at the numbers here. They're almost even between who believes multiple interpretations or single interpretations, or there's a lot more. So in Russia, 56% believe there's a single interpretation.
Are these Muslims that believe this?
Yes. These are percentage of Muslims who say Sharia law has multiple interpretations or single interpretations. So I'm looking at the numbers here. Virtually every stat, except for Morocco, places like that, are saying that it has multiple interpretations. So there's more Muslims that believe in one interpretation to Sharia law versus multiple interpretations. Again, you're making excuses.
I mean, okay, but why then do different countries interpret it differently and then implement it differently?
Are they? Are they interpreting it differently?
I'd say so, sure. Iraq is a much different country than Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is a much
sure. There are different ways that Islam and Sharia law are implemented. However, there's usually one thing it all has in common, which is oppression of gays, oppression of women. And last I checked, I'm pretty sure you are pro-gay rights, which I am also.
Okay, yeah, well, that's a whole other thing. But no, I mean, I get what you're saying, and I guess these countries are very, very conservative and very Muslim in their practicing, and I'm not going to argue that.
Yeah, however, I just don't think it's correct for you to argue that it's not an Islamic issue when all this violence is coming from Islamic places or people who are subscribed to Islam. That seems like a very huge coincidence if it's not an Islamic issue.
Yeah, I mean, I'd still argue that it's more political, and we can get into the history of that if you want. But okay, so let me ask you a question: should we then be collaborating militarily with mostly Islamic countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar?
Could you repeat that? I coughed and I didn't miss your question.
Yeah, that's okay. So should we then be collaborating militarily with countries like Saudi Arabia or Qatar?
No, that's something I don't agree with at all.
And why not? Simply because they are Muslim?
I don't think that we should be I don't think the U.S. should be, collaborating with countries, especially countries like Saudi Arabia that are oppressing women and oppressing gay people.
Okay, and it's because of
those countries are going against, Islam. Excuse me, those countries are going against Western policies, so to speak. The West believes in gay rights. The West believes in equal rights for women, and I don't think that the U.S. should be collaborating in things like that in other countries.
As of pretty recently, I mean, gay rights became constitutional like 3 years ago.
It was 2015, yeah.
Right, so pretty recently.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm still pro-gay rights, and you're pro-gay rights. So I don't know why you wouldn't be against an ideology that is murdering gay people or that teaches to murder gay people.
I'm okay. So
listen. I'm not Zach. I'm not suggesting you're for murdering gay people. I'm not going to suggest something like that. I'm just saying I don't understand why you're not against an ideology that is for murdering gay people.
I choose not to subscribe to that ideology, but I do believe that we need to protect people like that as long as they're obeying our laws.
Absolutely. I'm not saying we should go kill Muslims or something.
Well, we are killing lots of Muslims every year.
Well, I know we're killing some in other countries, but I'm just saying that to fix a problem, the problem must be identified. And so I'm going to say the problem is Islam. The stats and the facts are too strong for me to deny that.
And I'm not going to argue. Well, I guess I kind of already have, but it's really hard to argue that you're wrong about the religious aspect. But the way that we tackle an issue like this. So what about people that are Muslim in our country right now? Should we be logging those people? Should we have some type of light investigation on those people? Or is this just from now on, we need
I don't think we should go out and start profiling people and things like that. However, if we get information that, certain Muslims are being radicalized, that should be, then the government should act upon that.
Of course. Oh, of course. Anybody that's being radicalized, we need to, be investigating that. I just think it's a very difficult path to walk to be like, okay, well, this religion is bad, so all of the people that attribute themselves to it, what is then the next step?
The step would be to work for a reformation of Islam.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, and we have to let Muslims do that themselves, you know.
Yeah, but we need to, I mean, there's nothing wrong with us helping to speed up the process. And plus,
And
the other issue with the Reformation is I believe it's against the Quran or against Islam to reform it. So you're kind of stuck.
well, I don't know if it's against the Quran. It hasn't been reformed. It's a much younger religion. I mean, it was formed in 610.
I just think that to fix a problem, it must be identified. And we could talk in circles all day, whether it's Islam or whether it's violent people using Islam, this, that, the other thing. I've gone over the stats. I've gone over some of the facts I have. I have more if you want to hear them.
Well, so I mean, let's go back to the point about the source. We are currently, I think the United States is currently operating in Afghanistan to an extent, in Iraq and Syria.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that, military action, first and foremost, do you think that military intervention is a good idea? Should we be in those countries?
I quite honestly am not educated enough in that to give you a educated answer.
So my personal opinion is,
yeah, I would like to hear your opinion.
Now we kind of have to be. We don't have an option. We've walked in, we've invested a lot of resources in this region.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of hard to just be like, okay, well, you know what, this is not benefiting anybody, so we just need to leave.
Mm-hmm.
We now, in my opinion, you might not like the idea that the United States created these radical groups, but I kind of don't see.
Well, I don't like the idea of that because it's just not true.
Okay, well, it is actually true, in my opinion. Not my opinion, it's fact. But so when we go in and we're operating in these areas, if this is kind of a little metaphor that I like to use a lot. If somebody blows up your village, and I get it, they're focusing on targeting like an outcrop of ISIS fighters or something like that. They inevitably kill a lot more people.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a person that lives in this village and you see all of these people get killed and maybe sure, like 80% of them were the target, however a few random people died. If your brother, your sister, your father dies right before your eyes and it's a complete accident, the fact that it's an accident is not really what you're focused on. What you're focused on is the plane that's flying away and you see, okay, well, there's the United States flag on that, that's my enemy. I'm a much more likely candidate at that point to become a terrorist.
Absolutely. Listen, I see your point, and I can actually agree to a degree that that could influence future terrorists. Absolutely. However, that still does not answer my previous questions about how come Muslims living in America how come people living in America who convert to Islam are suddenly violent?
Yeah.
So sure, there are other things that could influence terrorists. Absolutely. However, that doesn't take away from the fact that Islam is still a violent ideology.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there are cases of people, doing that. But at the same time, there are cases of people converting to Islam that, join Islam because it is quote unquote the religion of peace. Islam, salam means peace.
Islam is not the religion of peace. I don't even want to get in. We already went over the facts that saying Islam is a religion of peace is one of the most stupid things you could possibly say. It's so untrue. It's not even funny.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about interpretation. And, of course there are people that read, the Quran and it says, in order to get into heaven, you need to kill people that are against Islam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are. And that's what's happening.
Yeah. But it's an interpretation. I mean, people are people. It's a book.
Well, then a lot of people are interpreting it to be violent, and that's a problem, and it should be identified before it can be fixed.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's many other problems, and simply targeting the religion is just a waste of time.
All right, well, I appreciate your input on that. Do you want to move on to a different topic? I want to know your thoughts on feminism, because I talk about feminism a lot on my channel. I know you disagree with a lot of things I talk about on my channel.
Yeah.
I want to know your opinions and thoughts on feminism. Plus, it's a little bit of a lighter topic than what we were just discussing.
Yeah, for sure. Frankly, on most other issues, as far as people and social justice and people's rights, I don't want to say I don't care, but it's not as much of an issue to me. Frankly, I'm much more involved in like economics and science, you know, like environmental law. The environment is probably the biggest factor in politics for me. That's what I do the most research on.
Okay.
Um, so when it comes to feminism, feminism by definition is, you know, to support the equality of women.
By
I,
definition, yes.
I by
That's what
definition,
the dictionary definition says.
right, and by definition, I am a feminist. So I
Have
believe
you ever had a
everybody that,
girlfriend?
huh?
Have you ever had a girlfriend?
I have, yes.
Okay. Okay. So listen, I understand, you know, the definition says, oh, it's all for equality, but the actions of feminists,
Right.
the actions of like the loudest feminists just
Yeah.
don't seem to support that definition any longer.
No, and in a lot of ways, you're right. I mean, so I watched your
I'll
last
give
video.
you, if you, I'm sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, so I watched your last video, Dear Gays, and I feel kind of like for a lot of these social justice issues, the point that you really bring up, you know, the point that really stands out is like these people, you know, they have rights, right? It's hard to deny that they have rights, but they're being just kind of aggressively vocal, right? They're being so over the top in you know, you need to pay attention to us, that it's like it's not even like the society is denying them rights. It's society is denying them some type of special privilege.
Exactly.
And it's sort of hard to argue that. I mean, frankly, you know, really one of the biggest issues as far as, you know, social justice for women that comes up is the wage gap,
Which isn't true.
There's very little evidence to kind of bring support that there is I mean, it's impossible to deny that there is a wage gap. What
it really is more of an earnings gap. So the wage gap that says women make 77 cents to a man's dollar, all they did was compare a man's yearly salary to a woman's yearly salary and then say, oh, look, the woman makes less. They didn't factor in how much overtime did the man work? How much time did the woman take off? Things like that.
And that's called appropriation.
Plus, men are more likely to ask for raises. Men are more likely to work overtime. Men are more likely shoot, I forgot where I was going with that.
Men are more likely to pick fields that pay higher. I mean, it's pretty hard to. So my main point with this is it's kind of hard to implement policy that fixes this. Like, what kind of policy are you going to implement that
there isn't a policy because there isn't a problem. So, I mean, there was already an Equal Pay Act passed in 1963.
Problem is a hard word to use. It's a problem in, you know, in people's eyes. I mean, it is kind of.
It's a problem in ignorant people's eyes because they're not paying attention to facts. They're not looking at the stats. They just read some article that says, oh, women are making less, and they think all of a sudden they're being oppressed. If women are able to be paid less, then how come companies are not hiring all women so that they can pay them less? Any smart businessman would do that.
It'd be a lot more obvious, I assume.
Oh, so it's actually like a big secret conspiracy kind of?
No, I don't believe it's a conspiracy at all. So like I said, I mean, this is not like one of those topics that I really have a lot of vested.
Yeah. Well, I know. I talk about. Well, see, I deal with a lot more social politics. Right. It sounds like you deal with a lot more things like economics and things like that. I also know that, like you just said, the climate change thing. I couldn't debate you on climate change. I just have not done enough research, and I'm not afraid to admit it. I haven't done enough research in it to even debate you on that.
Yeah, and that's I mean, I respect that, and I hope that you do some research because climate change really is probably the biggest problem facing humanity today.
Well, I would argue it's Islam, but that's a discussion for another day. Well, to kind of wrap up the whole feminism thing, what I think happened with feminism is this, and I'll just tell you. So I think that at one point, feminism absolutely was needed, like when the movement first started.
Right.
What happened was the movement formed, it achieved its goals. When a movement achieves its goals, the movement should just naturally dissolve. However, for whatever reason, feminism stuck around. So now it's forcing these feminists to find some form of oppression or some form of sexism just to keep their dying movement alive, just to give them some kind of relevance.
Right. So I think I might argue that a lot of people then climb onto the feminist train and use I kind of get confused with, you know, feminism versus people that are considered quote unquote social justice warriors. And at what point
they're kind of the same thing. They're kind of the same thing.
Yeah, but at what point are we diluting and calling these people feminists when they're actually, you know, aggressively pushing for something else, such as like more acceptance for people of, you know, the LGBTQ community or something like that?
Well, then they would be, you know, labeled, if we were going to talk about labels, they'd be marked as social justice warriors.
Right. So
Because there's nothing wrong with fighting for equality. There's nothing wrong with fighting for equality for LGBT, plus people or whatever. I think we just disagree on the methods of going about that, and we disagree on what the actual threat is. I would argue if you want to talk about sexism, go talk about Islam. I would argue if you want to talk about gay rights, go talk about Islam. They would rather say that, oh, it's all like, movies that normalize toxic masculinity causing problems, or they want to talk about myths like rape culture and things like that.
What is rape culture?
Oh, rape culture. I actually have the definition right here. So rape culture is a society or environment whose prevailing social attitudes have the effect of normalizing or trivializing sexual assault and abuse, aka not true at all.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, like these are not things that I've done too much research on. And I guess, when it comes to like, campus rape culture and stuff like that, I can only speak as far as I know in school. And just for a lot of these things, I feel like it's lots of different individual cases that happen that just don't really make any sense in their outcome. So, for example, at my school, I know that there was a guy who actually sexually assaulted 2 girls, and he was able to
terrible.
Yeah, and the first girl that he sexually assaulted, he was very minimally punished for. They moved him to a different dorm, and if the Hood College campus, the dorms are literally 20 feet away from each other. So, good job, administration.
I wouldn't know. I'm not allowed on there.
Yeah, well, there you go. So then he sexually assaulted a second person, and he was kicked off. And it's like the question of why was he even able to sexually assault a second person? How, if the school knew about the first one, how was he then kept around? And so I think
absolutely. And let me ask you this: how many people agreed with the school's decision on that?
Yeah, pretty much no one.
Exactly. So that proves rape culture doesn't really exist, because rape culture is a culture, a society that shares similar morals and values. So if we lived in a rape culture, there'd be a lot more people agreeing with that decision.
Okay, but would you then say that institutionalized rape apologeticism exists? Because this is a thing that happens in many different cases. I mean, we all heard about like the Penn State, I think, situation in which some athlete had sexually assaulted
Is that Brock Turner?
Probably.
Yeah, see, I love Brock Turner. I'm sorry. I don't love Brock Turner. I love when people bring up him as like an example of rape culture, because Brock Turner literally proves rape culture does not exist for the same reasons I just gave you. The guy sexually assaulted a woman, and he was only put in prison for a super short time. And then he even got out earlier than the original sentence. It was horrible. But here's the thing. All of society just agreed that was disgusting, stupid, and all of society absolutely hates that guy, me included. In fact, when Brock Turner got out of prison, when he came home, there were guys outside of his home with guns saying if he ever did that again, they would kill him.
Jesus Christ.
That does not sound like a culture that accepts rape. No, it sounds like the complete and total opposite.
It's a word choice thing. Like, I would say it's a much more institutionalized problem, because if you are right in saying, this one instance at Hood College, if it is true that it's happening at many other institutions than it is, and throughout, people are rejecting it, then you're right. That's not rape culture. That's institutionalized rape apologeticism.
All right. Well, I mean, I'm not denying the fact that bad things happen and that some people aren't, don't get away with it or something like that. I'm just saying that I don't think we live in a culture that normalizes or accepts rape, especially if you look at it, I mean, let's look at it the other way. Women are able to make false rape accusations and destroy men's lives.
Yeah, you're very right about that. However, some men get away with raping people and nothing happens. Donald Trump.
Absolutely. I think we could probably agree that in both areas, there's issues that should be addressed. I think that if a guy rapes a woman and he gets a low sentence, that's disgusting and wrong, and he should be locked up in prison for much longer. I also think that if a woman makes a false rape claim, because it works both ways. I have this story right here. This happened all but like 2 months ago. It says, attention-seeking woman is found guilty of falsely accusing 15 men of rape and sexual assault after claiming she was a lesbian and would never have sex with a man. She actually got a man locked up in prison for 7 years.
Wow.
So it goes both ways. Sometimes guys get off, and I think it's stupid. Other times, girls can make false rape accusations and get a man locked up in prison for years of his life. I think there's problems with the whole system.
Both ways. And I mean,
yeah.
I don't know if there's a way to fix the justice system so people can stop bamboozling each other, but but I guess I'm going to agree with you. You know, the idea of, you know, the phrase rape culture, a society that, accepts rape. I don't believe in that. I don't see the evidence.
All right. That's great, man. We found some common ground. I didn't know if you wanted to talk about any other issues such as like abortion, Black Lives Matter.
Going back to feminism.
Oh, okay.
I think these are a lot of things, by definition that people are kind of taking these definitions and skewing them a lot, Mm-hmm. To say that the feminist movement is out to, empower themselves higher than men or something, to make women like a superior. I just don't see the evidence for that either. I think it's
a little
wrong
bit more
to be like, I'm not a feminist and I don't need feminism because the feminist movement is doing these things. Well, if you believe that women should be equal and be treated just the same, not, with no regards to their gender, that's feminism. You're a feminist. You're a feminist.
No, because the actions of the feminists, of especially the loudest feminists and the most prominent feminists, usually does not add up with the definition. A dictionary definition can say one thing; it doesn't mean that is what that thing necessarily is.
Well, if she's a female empowerist and she wants women to be higher than men, she's not a feminist.
Well, you could go in circles all day. I just know based on what's happened to the movement, it's focusing the movement of feminism. Go look at like Huffington Post feminism section. Mm-hmm. The movement of feminism is no longer focusing on important issues. It's focusing on things that they think are oppression. That's simply not oppression. So a few years ago, women feminists claimed that air conditioning was sexist because it was set at a temperature that was more comfortable for the men in suits, but right. It made girls cold and shiver in their little skirts or whatever. There was stuff that say string cheese is sexist. The feminism movement has become a joke.
Yeah, but it's getting stronger and stronger.
It is not. No, actually, the numbers are decreasing.
Really?
Yeah.
And what's that?
I can't give you the exact stats, but I think it was in the UK. They did a survey. I think it was only, oh gosh, I want to say, I don't remember, but I'm going to say something like only 30% of women said they were feminists, while some 70% said they believe in equality of the sexes. These women are believing in equality, but they don't identify as feminists because they're not happy with what they're seeing in the movement.
Well, and I can understand that, but I'm just telling you factually, if they're not a feminist, then
if you're not,
she's a gender.
Don't try to tell someone because they're not a feminist they don't believe in equality, because that's simply not true. Well, you don't have to be a firefighter to believe that fires are bad.
By definition, well, that's not the same thing at all. You if you're not a firefighter, then you don't fight fires. If you're not a feminist, you don't believe in the equality of women.
That is completely untrue because I'm not a feminist and I believe in equality of women.
You're a feminist.
No, I'm.
Yes, you are.
I am absolutely not, because I don't identify with the movement. I don't identify with what they're I don't identify with their politics, things like that. A lot of women are unhappy with feminism.
So what they've basically done in that case is they've taken the word feminist and basically had it attributed to them. To that movement that is false feminism.
Oh, here we go again.
I mean, it's what it is. It's just how it is.
I would just say that several people no longer identify with feminism because they're not happy with the direction the movement's going. And you should do it. Go look at the Huffington Post feminist section. Tell me if anything they're posting about in feminism seems like it's of value.
The Huffington Post is a individual or independent, news source.
Okay, go read any feminist news source.
Yeah, and anybody that's going to start a thread of quote unquote feminism is going to be attributing to this feminist, like this feminist movement that you don't like.
Absolutely.
And that's not feminism.
Their policies are just wrong.
If it's female, supremacy, then that's not feminism.
I also don't. Well, see, okay, feminism believes in equality for women and all those things, but women already have equality. So what's the purpose of feminism?
But by definition, they don't really have true equality.
What do you mean by definition?
So
by factually, based on the law, right, they have equality.
Well, by the law is not. If you want to based on facts, focus on the facts of their incomes. I mean, we can understand that, yes, men work longer, women have to go through maternity leave, so they make less. But they still make less, and most of the reason is because
Well, absolutely, they make less. But then, what's feminism going to do for that?
that's my argument. My argument. So so has anyone ever brought up to you like the point of the patriarchy, like the idea
Yes,
of when you
it's not real.
of God, like people think God and it's a he. Don't deny you think of God, it's a guy, and
Yeah.
maybe you don't, but
No, I do.
most people do. And so I'm kind of this new movement of feminism in my eyes is out to defeat the patriarchy, and I like bringing up the analogy of God, but it's in many things. People just attribute.
So besides the God thing, oh, I'm sorry, I kind of cut you off there. I was actually going to ask you what some examples are of patriarchy.
And it's really hard for me to come up with that. Like, just the idea that men are kind of placed first. The man of the house.
Would you agree that, like, let's say, like a policy where maybe there's like a rule implemented where women have like parts of their genitals cut off because like sexual pleasure is only for the men? Would something like that be considered patriarchy?
Yeah, that's super patriarchy. And if you're gonna bring up a Muslim majority country, I know that's
no. I was gonna tell you that is in Islam. That's
it can be, yeah. But lots of tribalism.
All right. See, listen, I agree that in some places patriarchy exists, it's flourishing, and it's bad.
It exists
in the U.S. It's patriarchy. If please, patriarchy does not exist in the U.S. I mean, if your only example of patriarchy,
if the U.S.
argument is patriarchy exists because when people think of God, they think of a he. Come on, that has no what?
Yeah, you're right. That's bad. Does
that have any negative effects on people? Like it's so irrelevant. It's such a non-issue.
Not really, but that's my argument. These people want to. The new movement, or sorry, the new goal of the feminist movement is a lot of people see it is to take down the patriarchy. And I'm like, you can't do that. You cannot destroy the patriarchy. It
doesn't exist. You can't destroy patriarchy because it doesn't exist.
Yeah, well then I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say to that. Then I don't know how to respond to any feminists.
I would just tell them the patriarchy does not exist. Women have equal rights in this country. Men are not elevated above women.
I can't. Then I must be a sexist, frankly, because I can't argue something doesn't exist that I personally think myself.
What do you mean? Wait, what do you mean by that? I'm asking. I'm curious.
Just the idea in society of male
dominance.
It's more of a like a subconscious kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, women dominate some fields, men dominate some fields. It all just depends. A male nurse, the idea of a male nurse is silly. It's weird. Some people. That's a negative stigma around men being nurses because it's mostly female. Is that a problem? Right. Should that be addressed? I mean,
I don't even see feminism as a problem. Why is feminism a problem? Why is this new movement feminism a problem?
Feminism is a problem because it's filled with unhappy, usually unattractive women who believe they are oppressed, and they're spreading this misinformation to people. They're polluting the minds of other people. Think about it. What I'm telling you, or I'm telling women, maybe there's like women listening to this. Mm-hmm. I'm telling the women that I believe they can do whatever they want. If a woman wants to go into, maybe it's a still male dominated field. I'm trying to think of something in like science or something. Maybe a woman wants to go there. I say, go for it. You have equal rights. You can do it. What do the feminists say? Oh, there's the patriarchy. You'll never get in. You won't be able to make it. If anything, it's the feminists that are putting other women down.
I just don't see the evidence of that. I see the evidence in the school systems and, society raising girls to, turn them to more like Barbies, to more BS stuff where they're giving boys Legos and then boys are growing up and becoming engineers. And girls are, working in hair salons, working in, cosmetics.
Maybe they want to do that though. Maybe women like some women probably like working in hair salons. I used to get my hair cut by a lady that when she was a little kid, she would cut hair. That was like what she liked to do.
Jeez. I mean, sure. Maybe her dream was to grow up and cut hair, but that's...
If you're going to tell me that women are not able to achieve their goals, if you're going to tell me that women aren't able to achieve their goals, so they're all stuck in like hair salons and all these men are just able to rise right to the top, that's not true. There's plenty of men who are unhappy. You never see feminists complaining about the lack of female trash men or the lack of female like coal miners or something.
That's true.
Apply in one spot, it needs to apply everywhere. I just am telling you, I don't see any evidence of patriarchy. I don't see any evidence of male dominance. I agree that in some places there's male dominance, but in other places there's female dominance. I'm sorry. I know you're sick of talking about Islam. If you want to look at patriarchy, look at Islamic countries. That is what patriarchy looks like.
Yeah,
Patriarchy
and you're saying
in
it
the
doesn't.
West.
It doesn't.
Patriarchy does not exist in the West where women are able to do whatever they want. They're able to achieve any goal they want. There are several successful women. There's several successful CEO women that are worth millions upon millions of dollars. Women are extremely successful in this country. You can't tell me that it's all male dominant.
No, and I'm not saying that it is completely male dominant, and that's why I'm saying, you know, this argument of the existence, okay, of the patriarchy, and I guess my argument of, you know, how do you counter that? It's all history. I mean, we have to focus on schools and on upraising kids.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, I don't see any evidence of girls being taught, maybe in some places, but I don't see like this universal teaching going on that's teaching girls that they're less than men, or girls that they can't do this, or that men are dominant, or this kind of thing. Sure. There's still some negative stigmas around certain things. There's negative stigmas around men in certain aspects and women. I'm just saying that it's this weird idea that it's only the women who are being like oppressed, or that this idea that like women are these poor marginalized people, when in reality it's just not true. Everyone faces hardships. Every hardship a woman faces, maybe she didn't get a job or something, isn't because she's a woman. It's not always just because she's a woman.
Yeah, but it can be because she's a woman.
Sure, but it could be because you're a man. It could be because you're white. It could be because you're black. Everyone has problems. Like, I just don't think it's fair to say that it's only the women who are having these problems.
And that's completely why I simply don't really subscribe to that movement very much, because it's hard to argue, and it doesn't seem like a fight that is too worth fighting, frankly.
All right. Before we wrap this up, I am curious to know your thoughts, your opinions on abortion. You say you're very pro-choice?
Yeah. And so I'm going to try not to make this sound twisted and evil. However, my vocalization of being pro-choice mostly, is around, environmental reasons. So pretty much any environmental issue, if you get down to the root source, is because there's too many people. There's too many people on Earth. Right now we have about 8 billion people on Earth. They say by 2050 we're going to have 10 billion people on Earth, and that's a lot more than the carrying capacity that this planet can provide for. And yeah, so in order to do that, I mean, there's in areas of a lot of poverty, you tend to see that birth rates are a lot higher. And if people had access to contraceptives, and if people had access to safe and legal abortion, I think it's really, really hard to deny people that right. And it just doesn't make any sense.
I mean, I see your point, but don't you think that's a little dark? It's a little dark. I mean, our world's getting too overpopulated, so let's start.
I mean, we could make a dark animated drama about a child who is abandoned by their mother after birth, goes into the foster care system, gets abused, and grows up to be a criminal. That's a pretty
dark. But we could also make a documentary about someone who was going to be aborted. The mother decided to give birth, and she grew up to do something great and wonderful, and impact the world for the better. Right. You never know. I mean, that's a poor argument to try and suggest that, we don't know, what the life could be. The baby's gonna have a bad life. Like, no one, unless you're God himself, knows if the baby is going to have a bad life or not.
Right. Exactly.
So your reasons are for
basically overpopulation.
I just have I have a tough time getting on board. Like, we have an overpopulation issue, so let's start killing babies. That sounds a little dark for me.
Yeah, but it's. I mean, like I just said, you can go the other way, but based on the evidence, the most effective way to curb the expanding population of people is basically to allow people the right to, if they don't think they can care for a child and they don't have the desire to be able to.
Should that apply for do you think that should apply for other people? Like, what if like a families caring for like their old and like sick grandpa or something?
Should they be able to pull the plug?
Yeah. Like, should they essentially be able to, kill him for the sake of population reasons?
But why would they do that?
Well, you just said the planet's getting overpopulated.
Yeah, but there's a difference between saying, okay, well, this woman was raped, or this woman, had an accidental, pregnancy that she did not desire. to basically saying,
You do
okay,
know
well,
that you do know
this
that
person's
based on
pretty old, we have a lot of people, so let's just go killing old people.
well, you do know based on surveys that reasons for abortion based on surveys done from 1996 to 2005, rape and incest only made up 0.3% of the abortions. Rape is virtually a non-issue. I understand it still happens to a degree, but it's just not. If that's if that's like a big reason for abortion, it's not very founded in fact.
No, it's not really. And I mean, I definitely don't think it's a non-issue, but you got to understand that my reasoning is kind of beyond the individual choice. It's higher than that.
So what is your reasoning then?
The environment. I don't want to die.
The over. Okay. Just want to make sure I was clear on that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's an interesting take on things. I couldn't get behind it. I can maybe agree that overpopulation could be an issue if I did some more research on it, but I do not think our solution would be to kill people.
Yeah. I mean, it's bad. I mean, it's bad for the earth. It's bad for the economy. I just don't see and it straight up, it's a violation of the Constitution. So
what's a violation of the Constitution?
Disallowing people to have abortions. That's a personal.
Oh, now here's the thing.
Now you can, I get it. You can argue, okay, well, that baby has that's a life.
Well, I think the baby has a choice, but I was going to tell you that I don't think abortion should be illegal. What's going to happen? Because see, Republicans always say, well, if you take away guns, then people are just going to get guns anyway. But then they don't realize the obvious irony when they talk about abortion. If you make abortion illegal, women are just going to get abortions anyway.
I appreciate you bringing that up, and because that's a pretty high. The chances of you surviving a bot like a shoddy abortion that's done under the table or something, pretty slim.
Absolutely. See, I believe that abortion is something that needs to change at an individual level. So I think that abortion to start, slowly but surely stopping people from getting abortions, it comes when you show people what happens during an abortion. Show people the process. What happens during an abortion?
You rip the baby to shreds. You pull it out of the vagina.
Yeah, I mean, you quite literally take a suction tube and stick it in there and just suck pieces of it off.
Well, a lot of the times
that's disgusting.
A lot of the times they use these clampers, and you have to rip the limbs off, then break the skull.
I'm just curious how you know that and are still okay with it.
Because that's science. I mean, that is such a minute reason. There's just so many economic, environmental factors that go on top of that. And to get squeamish and say, oh my gosh, well, look how it happens is like.
It's not just getting squeamish. It's killing an individual. It's killing a human life.
Yeah. I mean,
are there?
I'm not going to deny abortion is murder. It is murder. It is murder for sure.
Okay. So you admit it's murder. You know how inhumane the procedures are done.
But you know what I also know is inhumane? I know that it's very inhumane to strip rainforests to grow agriculture, to then feed more people, to then pump more, waste into the environment, into the atmosphere, to then, clog up cities where people in China, have to be breathing out of these masks every day.
Sure, absolutely, that's bad.
I think the mass death of the human race is a lot worse than,
Okay, well, if you disagree with the mass death of the human race, then why are you okay with a mass death of a human race going on with abortion?
Because poverty is the mass death of the human race.
Oh, okay, that's what you meant.
And abortion.
I mean,
that's poverty. Or no, having a child that is unwanted and unable to be cared for is death of the human race, and our tax dollars. I mean, seriously.
Absolutely. I mean, based on your own understanding, are there any other ways to help with an overpopulation issue or with an economic issue?
Oh yeah.
Are there any other alternatives besides, killing babies?
Yeah. Oh, seriously. I mean, abortion is like the last case, scenario. Nobody wants to have an abortion. I mean, nobody's happily having an abortion.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that also. I don't like when pro-lifers, call women who get abortions like baby murders and things. I understand that a lot of women who get abortions are scared. They don't understand. They're afraid, they're confused, things like that. Yeah. However, there is a small minority that does just use abortion, abuse abortion. Sure. But that's not what I'm just bringing that up, but I'm not talking about that. I know the majority of women who get abortions are young, they're scared, they're afraid, they're confused. And I'm not denying that. I just think that there are better alternatives to abortion. So you admit there are other alternatives to help the economic issue, to help the environment, things like that, other than abortion.
Absolutely. But
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say,
oh,
so on top of that, there are other alternatives to abortion. There are
what is an alternative to abortion?
So I know that people always say, "Oh, just put up for adoption," like it means like it's just no big deal. Like just adoption, that's no big deal.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, there is. I wrote this down here. There are certain clinics. Okay, so there's clinics that provide housing. They provide financial assistance with groceries and household supplies. They provide counseling. They provide your medical costs and adoption legal fees fully covered, and they help you choose a family for the child.
That's pretty good. That's pretty nice. But
yeah, so that's what when I say there are other alternatives, I'm not saying, oh, just give birth to the baby and just whatever, put up for adoption. I'm just saying there are legitimate clinics and things set in place to help women, even to encourage women to give birth, because a lot of pro-lifers or a lot of Republicans in general have a problem that they seem less pro-life and more pro-birth. They're like, give birth to the baby. We don't care about it after that. I disagree with that. I disagree with that also. I think that if a woman gets pregnant, for example, maybe, she's at like a party or something and they don't use a condom and it's completely like her own decision to have sex and then she gets pregnant. I would say it was your decision to have sex. It was completely consensual. You chose not to use any protection or anything to avoid a pregnancy. So you got pregnant. That's the inevitable, pretty much.
Yeah.
So rather than killing the baby, let's go ahead and put it up for adoption. Use one of these clinics. Take advantage of it. Because based on the stats, actually, I have it right here. Yeah, 98.3% of abortions are done because the person feels too young or not ready for responsibility, economic reasons, kind of like what you mentioned, and they want to like avoid kind of like adjusting and changing their lifestyle.
Right, and that's a huge adjustment to have a child.
That's a what?
It's a huge adjustment. I mean, that's massive.
Absolutely. But I'm saying if that's the that's the biggest reason right now that women are getting abortions. So doesn't it make more sense to go through the pregnancy and put it up for adoption using one of these clinics that offers you everything?
Yeah, but we don't have these clinics. I guarantee you there are not enough of them. They don't have the resources to be able to provide for every single one of those potential children.
Well, it's not just one clinic that's doing that. I'm sure there's other ones.
Of course, but still there is no way that there's a system with that extent that they can have, provide that kind of support for everybody. And I wish there was. I'm not saying like it'd be wonderful if there was, but we need to build up to that, to that capacity first.
Yeah. I just can't. I cannot be on board with something that is so inhumane and just seems so unfair to terminate the life of an innocent child.
Life's
because
I mean,
I know life's not fair, but some things can be changed and adjusted to be more fair. And I think abortion is a good example of that.
Maybe it definitely needs to be adjusted. We definitely need to have a better system in place. Like, I'm not saying that, I complain about the pro-lifers being pro-birth and then, you just abandon the child only to not have a good system in place. I think it would be good if we, benefited the foster system and made it even better. But regardless, I think it is still a personal choice to have an abortion.
All right. Well, I mean, I already kind of expressed my opinion earlier about how I don't think it should be illegal and why.
Okay. Yeah. And I disagree. So.
All right. Well, agree to disagree, I guess. Thanks for coming on, Zach. It was a lot of fun. I want to ask you one more question before you go. And I'm not even going to argue. I just want you to give your answer. What made you decide to become a liberal?
Started learning more stuff and got smarter.
All right. Awesome. Well, Zach, thanks so much for coming on. Really enjoyed it. Have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for having me, dude.
No problem. Well, there you guys have it. A casual debate and discussion with a college liberal. If you're watching on YouTube, please give this video a like, comment below, and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget you can also download this on SoundCloud. Thank you everyone for watching. I'm Hunter Avallone, and I'll leave you offended, America.